Welcome to the Next Level Human podcast. As a human, you have a job to do. In fact, you have 4 jobs: to earn and manage money, to attain and maintain health and fitness, to build and sustain personal relationships, to find meaning and make a difference. None of these jobs are taught in school, and that is what this podcast is designed to do: to educate us all on living our most fulfilled lives through the mastery of these 4 jobs. I'm your host, Dr. Jade, Teta, and I believe we are here living this life for 3 reasons and 3 reasons only: to learn, to teach, and to love. In this podcast, I will be learning, teaching, and loving right along with you. I'm grateful to have your company. Here's to our next level. Okay, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the show today. Today is an exciting show for me because I have just released, or it will be coming out very shortly along with this podcast on January 25th, my latest book, and perhaps my last book that I will write on metabolism, which I'll tell you a little bit more about why that might be the case. But my latest book on metabolism, titled Next Level Metabolism, The Art and Science of Metabolic Mastery. We're going to talk about this book today because I don't want to just, talk about the book, but I also want to give you the perspective from which the book was written, which I think is an incredibly valuable way and still a unique way and still a way that most people are not looking at metabolism. The fact of the matter is most people are still after all these years. I started doing this work back in 2004, 2005. I developed the idea of a company called Metabolic Effect with the acronym ME, meaning that it is all about you. One of the reasons I developed that particular business in 2004, way back, is because I was absolutely appalled and disgusted, and all the intense words I can use as it pertained to the kinds of things that were being released. It was very one size fits all. There was a new fad diet every single year. It was a situation that I thought the health and fitness world almost seemed to be trying to trap people in the latest, greatest new trend. And now, today, as you listen to this podcast, it is January of 2022, right? So almost 20 years later, and guess what? Nothing has really changed from my perspective. The world of health and fitness and weight loss is still a world that thrives off of fads, in my opinion, the latest, greatest stuff. In the last few years, we've seen what? Keto, fasting, the carnivore diet. And rest assured, you're going to see more of these things. And so from my perspective, this message of do what works for you, stop doing the fad stuff, stop looking for, the latest, greatest thing, stop relying on food lists and recipes and, off-the-shelf workouts and one-size-fits-all diets. These things do not work. They have never worked. And this book is, again, an answer to that issue. My dream would be, if I could have a dream, I'll share it all with you all here. My dream would be that the next fad would be no fad at all. That the next fad in health and fitness and metabolism would be around finding what works for you. You've heard me say this over and over again, but there's only one rule in nutrition and fitness and weight loss, and that is do what works for you. That is the only rule. That is the only thing that has ever worked. It is the only thing that will ever work. Yet people still are doing these one-size-fits-all type of approaches. And that is why I wrote this book. And it is also the reason why it may be the last time I write this book, or I write a book on metabolism, rather. So let me tell you a little bit about the background behind the book, and then I'm going to get into some of the topics around the book and hopefully give you some really good to-dos. So Next Level Metabolism, really, I have written several books on metabolism. So my first book was The New Me Diet, or The Metabolic Effect Diet. It had 2 different titles. The second book was Lose Weight Here. Then I wrote a workout book and a program called Metabolic Aftershock. And then I wrote one called Metabolic Prime. Then I wrote one called Metabolic Renewal, which was perhaps the most popular work I've ever done. It was a specific diet and exercise program that really was addressing concerns of women. Metabolic Renewal is a female-only nutrition, exercise, and mindset program that came along with a video workout that now millions have done around the world, and a book that now millions have read around the world. And those books were the books that I wrote. Now, part of the issue when you're writing books, all of these were done through publishers. Metabolic Effect Diet, Lose Weight Here were done through HarperCollins, the first one, and then Rodale, the second one. Now, one of the things that I want to clue you into, when you write a book that a publisher buys, you lose control of that. So you don't get to name the book what you want. You have to fight for certain things. They want to make the book a very diet-esque book, very much the way we were just talking about this idea of one size fits all and food lists and recipes and all that kind of stuff. Now, they do that for good reason, because that's what a lot of people want. But it's also part of the reason they want it is simply because they're used to it. Now, the first thing that I want to present here is that I wrote this book as an answer. It's the book I always wanted to write, and I did not publish it with an online publisher or a traditional publisher. I published this one myself. And the reason I did that is because I wanted a book that had all of my work included in it with none of the fluff. And so what you will not find in this book is meal plans, recipes, food lists, anything like that. And the reason why you won't find that stuff, because from my perspective, when you include meal plans, food lists, recipes, and all of those kinds of things, what you are essentially doing is saying there is one way to do things, and that these foods are good and these foods are bad, and that these recipes are good and those other ones are bad, and that this meal plan is the only meal plan that you should ever be on. And the truth is, the amount of meal plans you should be on is infinitely varied. It depends on the person, right? There are infinite ways to eat to attain and maintain health, fitness, and fat loss. Sure, there are some overarching rules, but the idea that certain foods are good or bad is wrong. It's whether or not that food works for you or not. And this book is an answer to that. It is the book that I've always wanted to write that basically teaches you how to understand metabolism, how to speak the language of metabolism. It's crucial to understand that metabolism does not speak English or Spanish or French or Russian. It speaks metabolism. All of these diet books, including the ones that I wrote previously, don't do a really good job. Most of them don't even attempt to teach you how to read the language of metabolism. So Next Level Metabolism, this book, that's the whole point of it. It's to help you understand metabolism at a very deep level so that you can then begin to decipher your particular metabolism. Now, I want to go through several things here. This book is a big book, by the way. It's just under 400 pages. And it is also not a diet book, nor is it a exercise book. It is most akin to a textbook. Now, I don't want you to get scared away by that, but it is fairly technical in places, and it is different writing than what I have done before. This book is not for people who are just looking for meal plans and food lists and things like that. This book is for professionals and serious fitness enthusiasts, biohackers, and people like that who really want to understand what is going on under the hood with metabolism. The deep science. This has everything that I have learned in metabolism. Perhaps not everything, but it is most all my clinical work and most all the current science. And so that's why I say the art and science of metabolic mastery. And let's talk about that just for a second. When you are dealing with something as complex as the metabolism, and when you're dealing with science in general, it is always a bit art and a bit science. And the reason why is because when we think about science, science is a tool of averages. Research tries to get to averages. It tries to get to consensus around what would work for most people. And that's why I oftentimes say research is a tool for averages, not individuals. Because some research, believe it or not, when it is done, it will oftentimes throw the outliers out. If you have a group of subjects and you do a study on them, and let's use an example of maybe you're going to study the effect of magnesium supplementation and its effect on migraine headaches in a double-blind, placebo-controlled fashion. What you will find, and what a lot of the research has found, is that magnesium does not actually work for migraine headaches in that way. However, what you will also find if you dig down deep into this research is that it seems to work for a minority of people or patients. And when you're doing research, that minority, because there's so few of those individuals, the effect of that individual effect is washed out by everyone else. So it misses the fact that magnesium may indeed be useful for some people, even if it's not useful for most people. And this speaks to the nature of metabolism. We are each unique in our metabolism. You know more about your body and the functioning of your metabolism than I ever could. At least you should. And that's the purpose of me writing this book. This book is really a user's guide to metabolism, to really understand your metabolism. So let's go through some of the things this book covers. First of all, if you've been a listener to this podcast for a while, you probably remember the 5 laws of metabolism. So the 5 laws of metabolism, it was my way of taking very complex understandings in metabolism and making them easy for the layperson and easy for the professional to teach to their patients and their clients. This book covers those 5 laws, except I've made it simpler in this book and I've gotten it down to 3 laws. Now, these 3 laws, Law 1, the law of metabolic flexibility, Law 2, the law of metabolic individuality, and Law 3, the law of psychic entropy. I do want to go through these laws briefly here. Now, the law of metabolic flexibility says you do not want a fast metabolism, you want a flexible metabolism. It really goes into this idea that when you are in a position where you are thinking about speed of metabolism, what you are missing is a fast metabolism almost always means faster hunger and faster cravings. When you speed up the metabolism, you almost always induce compensatory reactions like hunger and cravings. And this is one of the reasons why 75% of people who go on exercise programs don't actually lose weight from exercise alone. In other words, I talk about a very popular study. I'll talk about it again here. Many of you have heard this. I covered it in the book as well, but it was a study done on perimenopausal women, women in the age range of about 35 to 55. So they were perimenopausal, menopausal women. They were put on a running program, told not to change their diet at all. And there were 3 groups. One group did 30 minutes of treadmill running 5 days per week. Another group did 45 minutes of treadmill running 5 days per week. And another group did 60 minutes of treadmill running 5 days per week. And when they tallied the results after 12 weeks, you would think if the metabolism worked just as a calorie counting apparatus, you would think everyone lost weight, wouldn't you? That's not what happened. Only 25% of the women in that study lost weight. and it was less than the predicted weight loss from the amount of energy they were burning through exercise. 50% of those women saw no change in weight whatsoever, fat loss or weight loss. And 25% of those women actually saw an increase in weight. They actually gained weight as a result of this exercise intervention. Now, of course, this is something that confused the researchers. So they went back and looked, and what they found is that these women actually end up overcompensating. Even though they told them not to change their diet, what ended up happening is they started to eat more. In some cases, in 25% of the cases, they ate so much more that it washed out the calorie burning effect of the exercise program and some. And so this is a point about you do not want a fast metabolism. Trying to speed up the metabolism through exercise oftentimes speeds up hunger and cravings and negates all the results. It's the same reason why we see things like individuals who do cold therapies, cryotherapies, cold water immersions, things like that, right? It's the same reason that those people, we can put someone in a cold exposure, a cold tub, a cryotherapy unit, and we will see their metabolism goes up. We can see this in winter swimmers, people who spend time in cold water or cold situations. Their metabolism is definitely boosted. We will see increased fat burning from these interventions. But what we won't see is weight loss over time. Why? Because when we speed up the metabolism through things like cold exposure, we also speed up hunger. So this is one of the key things you need to understand. The first law of metabolic flexibility says that the metabolism is not some static, linear, predictable thing like a calculator or a chemistry set. It's more like a thermostat. It is adaptive and reactive and responsive. So you expose it to exercise, it makes you more hungry and lowers metabolic rate. You cut your calories, it makes you more hungry and lowers metabolic rate. You expose yourself to cold temperatures, it raises your hunger and lowers your metabolic rate. In other words, it is constantly adapting and reacting. It is a flexible, living, breathing, intelligent thing that can adjust and respond to everything that you do. And so what you want to do, what this law tells you and what the book teaches you, is that there are many different ways to approach this metabolic flexibility. What it oftentimes means is that it's not just about eating less and exercising more. That is one approach. But it's also about eating less and exercising less. That's another approach. Or eating more and exercising more. That's another approach. Or eating some and exercising some. Now, all these terms are semantics in a sense. But what they are speaking to is they are speaking to the way the metabolism works. It works on looking at a calorie gap. The intake, amount of food you're eating versus the output, the amount of energy you're burning. And it measures that gap. And as that gap gets bigger, the metabolism becomes under stress. And when the metabolism registers a stress, it causes you to want to overeat, or it will do things to constrain metabolic output and recoup that energy through nutrition. And so part of what we're doing with metabolic flexibility and this particular book, Next Level Metabolism, is teaching you the many different ways to approach weight loss, body change, health, and fitness by understanding this calorie gap and understanding that you do not want to push that calorie cap too wide for too long. Otherwise, you're going to get compensatory reactions because the metabolism is flexible. So that's law number one. Now, that's a pretty powerful thing to understand, isn't it? Because it explains an awful lot, doesn't it? It explains why people tend to yo-yo diet while they'll lose weight for a time and then they'll have insatiable hungers and regain it all back. It explains, for example, the Biggest Loser study. A lot of us are familiar with the popular show, The Biggest Loser, where people lost so much weight. And then we oftentimes ask, why don't they ever do any Biggest Loser reunions? The reason why is because all of those contestants gain that weight back. This speaks to the law of metabolic flexibility. If you do not understand this law and don't know how to work with this law, you cannot achieve results over the long run for the vast majority of us. Now, the second law is the law of metabolic individuality. You would think that this law would be self-evident, right? Like, no duh, of course we're all different. Except for the fact that every single diet book out there treats us as if we should be eating the same things. treats us as if a food is either good or bad and always acts the same in every human. But we all know this is not true. You give 5 people 30 grams of chicken. Some of them are going to be disgusted by the chicken because they don't like it. Some of them are going to get digestive upset from the chicken. Some of them are going to feel satisfied from that chicken and not be hungry. Others will not, right? You give other humans, unlimited access, let's say, to something like chocolate. Some of us are going to be able to have 1 or 2 bites of chocolate and then be satisfied and put it away. Others of us are going to eat all that chocolate and then have cravings for French fries, then have cravings for burgers. Others of us are going to just eat the chocolate and not get any more cravings. We are all different. And so the law of metabolic individuality says we are different in 4 major ways. We are different in our physiology, which speaks to our genetics and the way that our blood sugar changes with certain meals and all of that kind of stuff. We are different in our psychology, right? How we react to stress, what we do, and how we adapt to a sleepless night or a stressful week at work. We are unique in our personal preferences. Some of us like Brussels sprouts and beer, and some of us like chocolate and sweets, and other of us like savory, right? We're all very different. Now imagine trying to change your lifestyle and have none of the things you like, and then being told you have to eat all the things you don't like. I'm sorry to break into the show, but I wanted to take a second to cover one of our sponsors and tell you all about Paleo Valley at paleovalley.com. These are the grass-fed sticks that I tell you all so much about that all of my friends know I have on hand constantly. They are in my car. They are at my house. I keep them at my sister's home and my parents' house. I have these things everywhere because they are the simplest, most convenient whole foods protein supplement you can get. Almost like carrying around pure protein, low carb protein in your pocket. They also, these Paleo Valley beef sticks are the only 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef sticks on the market. They use organic spices. They are naturally fermented instead of using nitrates and nitrites that can be a problem in some of these cured meats, and they simply taste fantastic. Check out the original or the jalapeno. Those are my favorites. Please make sure you go over to paleovalley.com and visit. When checking out, use the code NEXTLEVEL for a 15% discount. Remember, our sponsors keep the show going by you giving them your patronage and spending your money on these high quality products. You actually do a few things. 1, you're helping to support the podcast. And 2, you are helping your health. And 3, you are making sure that good quality companies like Paleo Valley can be out there doing their business, changing the world, making the earth better. One of the things you may not know about this is that grass-fed organic and grass-finished beef is doing something that is so utterly important for our environment, actually helping to repopulate the topsoil. A lot of people don't know this, but our topsoil is being extremely depleted, and raising animals, especially cattle, the correct way helps to get that topsoil back. This is one of the reasons why I love Paleo Valley. Not to mention it tastes fantastic, but they're one of these companies, like my other sponsors, Cured Nutrition and Organifi, that are doing the right things by the environment. I really appreciate everything they do, and I hope you will check them out. Thanks so much. paleovalley.com. Use the code NEXTLEVEL. And now back to the show. And of course, we are also very different in our practical circumstances. Some people live in food deserts. They don't have a Whole Foods anywhere near them. They do their shopping out of Exxon Mobil stations. Other people, right, have a health food store right around the corner and have the income and the ability to eat healthy and get healthy food. So these things matter. So the law of metabolic individuality is covered in depth in this book. And it basically tells you a little bit about how to manage that, how to figure out what's going on with your physiology, how to understand your psychology, how to incorporate your preferences, and how to account for your practical circumstances. These things are huge. And then, of course, the last one is the one that confuses a lot of people because it's got a kind of fancy name. I call it the law of psychic entropy. Now, it's really the law of willpower, but the reason I did not call it the law of willpower is because willpower is very misunderstood. Most people think we either have willpower or we don't have willpower, but willpower is much more akin to skill power. So I like to talk about skill power, not willpower. Well, psychic entropy basically means psychic means brain, right? Thinking. And entropy means loss of energy. So another way to think about this law is the brain drain law. You have a ton to do. You're under a lot of stress. Your energy, your brain is going to be drained, and it is not going to be able to resist some cravings and things like that. We all know what this is like. If you've been under stress or you have had sleep deprivation, you are far more likely to eat junk food than not, versus if you've had a perfect night's sleep and are not under stress. This is the law of psychic entropy. When the brain encounters stress, it jumps back to old habits. Habits are just shortcuts. They're protective mechanisms. They basically allow the brain to conserve energy when stress comes. And that's why I call it skill power, because if you really want to be successful with metabolism and changing your metabolism and getting it to do what you want it to do, what you need to do is develop skill power. You need to understand that you need to develop habits that take the place of old habits. Think about how the human brain works. I mean, the way we humans are is we want structure. We want to be told what to do, right? So this saying that I'm giving to you, I'm saying there's one rule, do what works for you. Well, that's going to create some angst in a lot of you listening to this, right? Because you're going to be like, well, I don't know where to start. Where do I start? So what the book does, Next Level Metabolism, the book basically says, here are places to start. Here's how to think about an initial structure. So an initial structure could be just something you're drawn to. Let's say you always wanted to try vegan or raw or carnivore or keto or intermittent fasting or any other dietary regime or system. Absolutely, you can start with that. That can be your structure. Now, the proof is always in the pudding, and that's what this book begins to teach you how to do. Regardless of what structure you choose, that structure should, if it's working for your metabolism, it should result in a few things. It should result in your metabolic balance being stable and under control. What do I mean by metabolic balance? Things like hunger, energy and craving, sleep, mood, exercise performance, exercise recovery, libido, menses, digestive upset, signs and symptoms. All these biofeedback sensations, if you have the right structure, should begin to correct and be under control, especially hunger, energy, and cravings. This is the first part. Now, if that is the case, and I use an acronym for this that many of you know, sleep, hunger, mood, energy, and cravings, SHMEC, SHMEC. If your SHMEC is in check, I oftentimes say, then you have metabolic hormonal balance. Regardless of what nutrition program you have chosen to have or to do, it should keep SHMEC in check. If it does not, it is the wrong thing for you to be doing. That structure then needs to be adjusted, right? And the other thing you need to have is it needs to help you attain or at least maintain, if you're already in a nice, lean, fit, functional body composition, it should be doing that as well. It should be helping you attain a lean, fit body or helping you maintain a lean, fit body. And third, if this structure that you've chosen works for you, then it should also, when you go and do your vitals, which I recommend you do them quarterly, but, so up to 4 times per year, at least 1 time per year, when you go and do your vitals, blood labs, blood pressure, all of those kinds of things, they should be moving in optimal directions. Your blood sugars, your blood pressure, all of that stuff, your liver enzymes on a blood test, your cholesterol levels, they should all be optimizing. Now, if SHMEC is in check, you're losing weight and your vitals are moving in optimal directions, then you know that structure is working for you, and that is the perfect structure for you. If it is not, then you need to adjust, and that's where the flexibility comes in. And this book begins to teach you how to think about that flexibility piece, how to think about what you need to do. Some of you listening to this will indeed need to begin to get more specific about counting, weighing, and measuring, and determining things like calories and grams of protein and grams of fat and grams of carb, etc. Others of you won't need to worry about that stuff at all. Some of you will be able to take a more intuitive approach. But the book begins to help you understand how to be flexible inside your structure. Think about how powerful this is, right? When you think about it, what you're doing with this structure, what most people are doing is they just pick any structure, they buy a new book, they go this one-size-fits-all approach, and then they basically try the structure, and it either works or it doesn't, and then they're out of luck, in a sense, until they find the next off-the-shelf structure. And most people jump around from one structure to the next structure to the next structure, trying to find something that works for them. What I'm suggesting here in this book and in my work is that it's not about finding a diet, it's about creating a diet. It's not about finding a workout program, it's about creating a workout program. It's about creating a diet, exercise, and lifestyle that you can love and live with over the long term. It's about creating something that is built for you by a deep understanding of your metabolism. It's very different than a protocol. It is a process. Protocols are off-the-shelf, one-size-fits-all things. A process is something you can repeat again and again and again. So you get this structure, you work with this flexibility, you get your schmeck in check, you start losing weight, your vitals are perfect. But guess what? The metabolism changes, doesn't it? It absolutely does. So what works for you today is not going to work for you tomorrow. Now, if you're working off of protocols, then that protocol is going to stop working at some point, going to stop working, and you're going to be out of luck. But if you've learned a process, all you need to do is repeat the process again and again. And the more you repeat that process, the better you get at it, and therefore you will never have to diet again because you will always know how to repeat this process. So this is what Next Level Metabolism teaches you how to do. Now let's get into some other specifics here. One of the things that I oftentimes get asked about are, should I be counting calories and macros and things like that? That is covered in this book. And I basically teach you, if you're just based on your personal preferences, like some of us are math people, that you want to do that, I teach you the way to do it. There's several different ways to do that. If you want to be more intuitive and you don't want to count, then there's several different ways to do that I teach you. But I also want to make it clear, and I make it clear in the book, that if you're an intuitive type, and you're not getting results off of that, your metabolism doesn't care whether you don't want to do math or not. You may need to do that. They may need to be the thing that is required to get you the results, and vice versa. If you're a calorie counter and always looking at macros and all that kind of stuff, but can't function without it, you may need to release the reins on that and do something different. This is critical. This is really all about you learning your metabolism and creating a lifestyle that fits that metabolism. It's the only way that it works. Now, when it comes to exercise, one of the things you're going to learn is you're going to get the latest and greatest research on exercise. You're going to learn why it does not work for weight loss the way that we think it does. You're going to learn why movement, walking, tends to work way better. You're also going to learn why weight training is going to be something that most all of you want to do. There's certain things that work for the vast majority of people. Walking and weight training are critical. Now, of course, we all love things, right? We got to go back to personal preferences. So it doesn't mean you can't do the exercises that you want. But what's beautiful about this, if you're someone who does not like to exercise at all, you're going to learn how to still get results from Next Level Metabolism. Like, think about it. Go back and think about the elderly Parisian women walking around the streets of Paris who has been lean her whole life, eats anything she wants within reason, and walks a ton and lives these long, healthy, fit, lean lives. Many of you can do that. You do not have to be an exerciser to get the results that you want. You do have to be a mover, however. And Next Level Metabolism makes that distinction for you and helps you develop a process that works for you, whether or not you're a gym rat like myself or not. I love going to the gym. That's what I do. I lift weights. You might not like that, but you're going to get all the details on what are the best forms of movement. Walking being number one, weight training, and what I would call metabolic conditioning, which many of you may know, many of you may not, which is a very efficient resistance training that is done in a way that we would call lifting weights faster. Not faster in the sense of how fast you're lifting the weights, but faster meaning on how short your rest period is. And so you're going to learn in this book how to think differently about exercise, how to understand the differences between movement and exercise, and how to make resistance training as efficient as you can make it. I also give beginner workouts, intermediate workouts, and more advanced workouts in this book. For those of you who are super advanced in fitness, I also help you manage and teach you how I structure and program multiple exercise modalities into one program. For example, if you have weight training in there and you're working on skills, but you also want to run, a lot of people have turned fitness into more like a sport now. So like if you're a CrossFitter, you're going to love this book because it's going to meet you. It's going to teach you how to eat for an athlete and how to build your workouts. Basically, this book is not me giving you the fish. It's me teaching you how to fish. And there's a big discussion in here about how to manage exercise. The one other thing I want to talk about that is probably the most unique to this book that is not in my other books is I give you a deep dive into what I actually mean when I use terms like hormonal metabolic balance. I give you a deep dive in why I use clinical types and how to think about types like metabolic types, hormone types. I've talked about this a lot. These things are not really scientific terms. That's why I call it the art and the science. What you're getting is my clinical practice and a lot of the art that I use. So you're going to learn how I think about types. You're also going to get a really deep dive in the science of hormonal metabolism. And so for those of you who are interested in hormonal metabolism and want to go past just calories, that's all in there. I oftentimes say there's two things required for sustained fat loss. And of course, I use sustained for a reason, and I use fat loss for a reason. It's easy to lose weight. Well, not for everyone, but it's much harder to maintain it. So what you want to sustain that weight loss. But you also don't want it to be just weight loss because you can lose muscle and water. We don't really want that. We want to maintain our muscle. We want to lose fat. So sustained fat loss is really what we're talking about here. Now, in order to get the sustained aspect of fat loss, it's about two things. It's about calories and it's about controlling hunger and cravings and energy and all that kind of thing. So what is behind controlling hunger, energy, and cravings and that kind of thing? Well, it's hormones. Now, when I talk about hormones, you're going to learn in the book, you'll learn a little bit about the idea of most people think I'm talking about sex steroids. And of course, I do a deep dive in this book on testosterone and estrogen and progesterone and the rest. But most of the hormones I'm talking about here are the communication between the hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals, thyroid, and gonads, as well as the incretins. And so you get a very big, long discussion about insulin and insulin resistance and thyroid hormones and a really tangible way for you to understand hormones. I would venture to say, and I know some people might say, well, that's kind of an arrogant thing to say, but I really do mean this, and I think this will be the case. If you read this book, and you go through the hormonal aspects of this, chapter 2, I believe it is in the book, you're going to know more about endocrinology than most family physicians do because it's that in depth. Now, it is some tough reading, but I've done my best to make this simple for you. The final thing you need to know about Next Level Metabolism, and the thing that I think you need to sort of get into some of the to-dos, is we do get deep into what you should be doing and how to be doing that. So there is a process that I do teach you. So if you've been listening to this and saying, I don't know that I like this because I feel like you're telling me just to figure it out, to come with my structure. But actually in this book, I give you the structure that I give my clients. So you are going to learn what I do in clinic and what I did in clinic for years and why I was so successful and why my programs have been so successful. You're going to learn the actual starting point, the structure that I would recommend you use, as well as the technique to adjust that structure to turn it into a process that is repeatable. You're also going to learn how you change with age. What happens around perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, what happens at andropause, the struggles that men will have around things like erections and libido as they age, and the struggles that women will have around libido and weight gain around the middle as they age. So this really has everything in this book. Now I'm going to go ahead and just finally give you some of the basic structures, because what I don't like to do is I don't like to do podcasts that don't give you to-dos. And so let me briefly go through what I think for those of you who are professionals and those of you who are lay people listening to this. So for the professionals who get this book is going to teach you everything you need to know to work with your patients and clients with hormonal weight loss. It really is the state of the art in what we currently know about metabolism. So you're going to be able to get direct protocols. It also has lots and lots of graphics in this. That's why I say it's a lot more like a textbook. Now, if you're a lay person listening to this, here's the way that you want to be thinking about this, whether you read this book or not. What you want to do is you want to stop studying other people. Isn't that what we do? We typically go, well, I'm going to read this book, or I'm going to watch this podcast, or I'm going to listen to this documentary. And what you're getting there, you're getting things that have worked for other people. You're getting people's biased opinions. Documentaries are the most biased thing in the world. It is not journalism. It is a biased presentation of what people want you to believe. That doesn't mean it's not useful. It just means you have to be careful outsourcing information on your metabolism. Stop outsourcing information on your metabolism. Learn your metabolism yourself. Become an expert in your own body so that when you listen to a podcast or you listen to a documentary or you watch your YouTube videos or you read a new book, you're reading it from an understanding of, okay, I'll take what is useful, I'll discard what is not, and I won't forget what already works for me. This is a quote that I love by Bruce Lee. He says, absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. So the first thing you need to do is, I'm not saying to stop consuming information. What I'm saying is stop outsourcing the knowledge about your metabolism to other people. Each thing that you read or listen to or watch has some useful information for you. Most of that information, however, is going to push you away from understanding your metabolism. So what you really want to be thinking about and doing is you want to be looking at all this material and taking what is useful, throwing out what does not work for you, and then keeping what you know works for you so you can sustain it over time. This is the process you will learn. So this is how you want to start thinking about this. This book really begins to give you that. Now, I'll give you the beginning structure that I think you should be starting with. Now, again, it's a starting structure because I don't know your metabolism. Your metabolism will reveal itself in the process of this. What I typically like to start people on is a diet of low carb, low fat soups, salads, scrambles, shakes, and stir fries. You can even extend that out a little bit more. Low carb, low fat soups, salads, scrambles, shakes, stir fries, skillets, and sheet pans, right? Basically what I'm saying is salads with protein, right? When you think about a stir fry, it's a hot salad. When you think about a soup, it's a wet salad. When you think about a salad, well, it's a salad. A scramble is an egg salad. A shake is a smoothie is like, a protein vegetable or a protein fruit salad. Sheet pans, skillets, these kinds of things, they're basically all just hot salads. Now, it's important to understand there is nothing at all wrong with fat and carbohydrates. They're some of the most productive, healthy foods that we can eat. They're just also the ones that are loaded with the most calories. And the only reason you start out excluding foods that have huge amounts of starch and fat in them is so that you can understand which of those two things, starch or fat, your metabolism likes best. Now, wouldn't that be a beautiful thing to understand whether you thrive better off of fat or starch? It's a powerful thing. And so I start you with this soup, salad, scramble, shake, stir fry type approach. Basically, vegetables, fruits, and lean protein. A very paleo-esque type of approach. And then as you move forward, measuring schmeck, measuring results in weight loss, measuring your vitals, you'll begin to use fat and carbohydrates more like condiments to add back into the diet to your tolerance level. Some of you might move to a mostly fat-based vegetable diet. Others of you might move to more of a carb-based vegetable diet. Some of you might move more towards a mix. But the idea is you start with that particular structure, then your metabolism guides you. Jade doesn't guide you. A guru doesn't guide you. A book or a podcast or a documentary doesn't guide you. Your metabolism's reaction to what you are eating and doing is what guides you. This is the way it works. This is the way it always has worked. And this is why I've written this book, and probably the reason why I will not write another metabolism book again. Because to me, this is the way it works, and it is the way it will always work. Now, is it easy? Hell no, it is not easy. But it's a lot easier than getting short-term results and then long-term penalties. The metabolic credit card effect. That's what most of your clients, patients, and most of you who are lay people have been doing. You get some results, you do a little bit of program, and then you have steep penalties later. Why? Because you never understood your metabolism. Next Level Metabolism, I hope, is your handbook on metabolism. It's going to teach you the language of metabolism. It's going to teach you how to work with your metabolism. It's going to teach you the process, the repeatable process to use anytime your metabolism changes. And hopefully, this will be the end of dieting for you after reading this book. Thanks so much for hanging out on the podcast, everybody, and I will see you at the next episode.